Greetings, Rob Simpson with you, aka Simmer. We are Krakin Canuckleheads. That's right. Talking Seattle Kraken and Vancouver Canucks. It's your headquarters for the NHL in the Pacific North. And it just so happens that Tuesday night, the two teams played one another at Rogers Arena in Vancouver. The Kraken fell to 0-2 on the preseason. They got spanked 6-1 by Calgary at home the other night, and then they lose this one 3-1 to Vancouver with an empty netter. So 2-1 until the late stages. A couple of power play goals for the Vancouver Canucks. Niels Höglander with one, as well as Philip Hronek picking up a power play goal. It was 2-0 until the third. Early in the third, Ben Meyer got one back for Seattle, but then that was all they could muster. A lot of time in the penalty box for the Kraken last night. From a Vancouver perspective, man, Artur Silovs, he was the difference late because Seattle could have tied it. And they had two golden opportunities. Silovs robbed Jaden Schwartz and he robbed Andrei Burakovsky very late in the hockey game and preserved a victory, essentially. And that's the story. And that was the first post or preseason game for the Vancouver Canucks. A whole lot of Jonathan Lekkerimäki, the former first round pick of the Canucks, who just saw a heap of ice time and had plenty of scoring opportunities, ended up getting on the board. He had an assist on the Hronek power play goal, and he also had an assist on the Pius Suter empty netter. Arttu Raty, or Ratu, also very, very busy last night, got a real good look. And in fact, I believe after the game, head coach Rick Tocchet said that he wanted to see a handful of these exact same players back at it in Abbotsford against the Calgary Flames. So, and you know what? I like that idea. Why not? Why, most of the time you will see guys playing a preseason game and then flip the roster almost in its entirety, unless you're really focusing in on a particular D-man or something, and you really want to take a close look at one particular young player. You might crank him out a few times, but usually it's a flip, right? But in this case, he's going to come back and play a good handful of some of the same guys again. What it does is it just gives you an opportunity gives the players an opportunity to get some reps in and be, coming back to back, fresh legs, fresh off playing, get a good look, see what they've picked up, see how they do. I mean, just generally speaking, I just think it's good. It's a cool concept. So Vancouver gets that victory. And Tyler Myers was a physical force last night. He was throwing some weight around. Let me give you the Ratu's stats last night. He had a couple shots on goal. He picked up an assist. I told you about Lekkerimäki's situation. He had the two assists. He also had two shots on goal. So the youngsters there keeping busy. Connor Garland's been super duper motivated, a guy that they were ready to run out of town. Doesn't seem like that long ago. He's magical. From the Seattle Kraken standpoint, I've decided that I'm going to get on the phone real quick, 5-minute time limit with the radio voice of the Seattle Kraken, Everett Fitzhugh. Everett Fitzhugh. Boom. 5 minutes with Everett. All right. What jumped out at you last night for the Seattle Kraken in their 3-1 loss with an empty netter to the Vancouver Canucks?
Well, I think for me, the piece to take away from last night, like whose line is it anyway? Everything's made up and the points don't matter. Last night's game, it meant nothing in the long run. No, I think it was a much better game than what we saw Sunday. And I think not only did the score dictate that, the way the team played, I thought was a lot better. They were a bit more aggressive offensively. I think they were a bit more aggressive physically as well in that game, and they couldn't stay out of penalty trouble. That was the big thing for me. I think the Canucks ended up going 2 for 6, 2 for 7. I don't have my game sheet in front of me on the power play, and the Kraken were 0 for their only 2. So Brandon Tanev was mixing it up a bit. John Hayden got in the mix a little bit, which you like to see. But I think overall, I go back to Dan Bilesma's quote a couple days ago. It takes 21 days to build new habits, and we only have 20 days of training camp and preseason action. So we're not there yet, and I think the team isn't there yet. But I do think there's been a big jump made from Sunday to last night against the Canucks.
Did an individual or individuals stand out?
I think Joey Decord for me. I think he looks pretty good. I mean, he did take the penalty, the delay of game, playing the puck in the restricted area penalty, which is very uncharacteristic. Which actually, I think that might be the first time that I've seen that in the 3 years of doing this here for Seattle. But I thought he played pretty good last night. I liked the play of the kids. I liked watching Winterton and Morrison and Shala, Carson Rakop. I liked how they played last night. And for me, that's what the preseason is all about. You know, Maddie and Jaden Schwartz and Vince Dunn and all those guys, you know they're going to have their spots. But for me, what I look at in preseason games is the players that you're high on in your organization, how far they've progressed in the last calendar year. We saw these guys at camp last year. We saw Ryan Winterton, Logan Morrison in a Kraken sweater for a handful of games. They had really good years down in the American League. And now these are the type of games in which you want to see how they progressed and how they've moved forward. So those two lines, those two players, lines of players, the kids last night really stood out for me.
All right. Who did you not like so much? All right, just kidding, Everett. Not gonna put you on the spot, buddy. All right, is there anybody that anybody that you're dying to see that's played maybe not at all or just a little bit that you'll probably see in the next game?
Well, I mean, I think for me, I mean, it's Chandler Stevenson and Vince Dunn. That's exactly who I'm looking forward to seeing. I loved the way that Brandon Montour played last night, and I know that it was only his first game, so you're working the rust out, you're working the Stanley Cup hangover off, and I understand that. But I thought he looked really good, and that's exactly what I think the Kraken were missing. He moved the puck well. He had a little bit of sandpaper to his game last night. Now I want to see what Chandler Stevenson, the other major offseason acquisition, can do. I want to see Vince Dunn. He had some issues with injury last year, late in the season. We missed him from some games. So hopefully the Kraken can get him back soon. And also Andre Burakovsky. I thought Andre Burakovsky last night, he didn't look bad. And what I noticed about him, and even throughout the first few practices, he's getting more back more to that north and south game rather than that east and west game. He's getting in the corners. He's going to the net. He was shooting the puck yesterday, which I love to see. He had a maintenance day today, which obviously with his injury issues that we've seen with the Kraken, I mean, I'm not worried. I'm not concerned. We've only had a week of practices, but it does, you do a little eyebrow raise, like, why are we a weekend and we're already needing a maintenance day? But again, everyone's different. Chandler Stevenson, same thing. You never know, right? I'm not worried. I'm not in the least bit concerned, but I want to see Andre Burakovsky in another game, two more games to see where he's at. But those are the two outside of Burakovsky. Those are the two guys, Dunn and Stevenson, that I'm looking forward to seeing.
All right, you're 32 seconds over. Not my fault. Good stuff on Burakovsky. I'm glad you went over. So Turbo.
That's what you were asking a radio guy to come on and talk on your show and have him keep it short.
Final score. The Lions play the Seahawks coming up?
Yeah. They play on the Monday night, Kraken in Calgary. And then the
Seahawks,
Detroit.
Final score, Seahawks Lions.
Final scores, Seahawks Lions. I got Lions 31. I got Seahawks 24.
All right. I'll let you go on that. I'll let you go. So we're a minute 12 over. God bless you. Take care of yourself. We'll listen to you on the radio for what day is this? Wednesday? Friday?
It's Wednesday. Yeah, 9:50 KJR on Friday, Saturday, and Monday. back on the big dial, 93.3 KJR FM next Wednesday.
Okay, 9:50 the next three, and then KGR the one after that. It's
Yep.
Vancouver in town on Friday night. Okay. Now, one of the reasons for today's show, LA Kings. Have you wondered about the LA Kings? You wondering how and why they've made the playoffs in three consecutive seasons? What? 99 points, 104 points, and then 99 points again. Everybody, particularly out east, Canadian media in particular, Edmonton, a lot of conversation. Vancouver, a lot of conversation. Vegas, of course, they'd won a Stanley Cup. Calgary, what's wrong with Calgary? Seattle, oh, what a great story 2 years ago, fell back off last year. Who are we forgetting? Oh, that's right. The LA Kings, the team that actually has made the playoffs in three consecutive seasons. So, what did I do? I got a hold of Dennis Bernstein, who's like the expert, the beat writer extraordinaire for the fourth period. Bernstein, who does some, it's one of my three Bernstein friends, by the way, three completely random all over the map geographically, three Bernsteins. And I think one of them has a brother, Dennis, but it's not this Dennis. This is Dennis Bernstein, Kings. We'll talk about his podcast. You'll get the information from him if you want to follow up. Really good stuff. Does some Sirius XM and does a lot of material for the fourth period, him and Pags. So if you want to know what's going on with the Kings, I'm going to break this down. I'm not going to show you the whole 25 minutes right now. I will make that available. What I'm going to do is just pinpoint a couple different things. I want to just talk about general, what's the deal? Why is this successful? Three in a row in the postseason, coming out of kind of the COVID doldrums. How did they turn it around after 21 in terms of, I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah, well, they smartly, you know, analyzed that the team was getting older. It was time to trade up veterans like Jeff Carter, Tyler Toffoli, and they rebuilt. They still had the core. They still had Anze Kopitar. They still had Drew Doughty. They still had a solid core there. A guy like Mikey Anderson as well, who's now signed long term. So, and then they drafted well, and they made some good moves in free agency. I think the one major one that people still undersell is Phil Donnell. He really stabilized the center position behind Anze Kopitar. And he came in first year, scored 27 goals. That's way over for Phil. You figure by maybe 17, 50 points for Phil. I think the most important thing why they bounced back, Todd McClellan came in, structure, defense. It's carried over. It hasn't been good enough in the playoffs. It wasn't good enough for regular season. And so Todd did a lot of great things, got this team back into contention. But as you mentioned, they haven't won a playoff round since they won the Stanley Cup in 2014. And this is Rob Blake's, I believe, eighth season starting. We shouldn't be asking Rob at this point, when's your team is going to win a playoff round? It should have happened by now. And it's critical that they have some success in the postseason. A lot of people, Rob, after the Kings got eliminated in 5 against Edmonton, and it got progressively worse against them in the playoffs. First year, they made the playoffs, lost in 7 in a very tough game. Connor McDavid played 27 minutes. They lost in 6 the previous year. And they lost in 5 last year. So a lot of people speculated that Rob Blake maybe wouldn't be the general manager this year. And but what I know of the management and ownership, it's not a very reactionary ownership. Like, Phil Ann shoots his hands off. He's recluse. He's up in Denver. He's not a hands-on guy. He's not like Aquilini, who we'd see in the stands every night or on social media. So they're very patient. They still draw well. They still did make the playoffs. And if they do make the playoffs, I checked. If they were to make the playoffs this season, Rob, that would be 4 seasons in a row. There's only 8 teams that potentially could make the playoffs 4 seasons in a row. It's hard to do. But again, when you had Stanley Cups and you still have a couple of the guys who were on those Stanley Cup teams and you're not winning rounds, that's troublesome. So it's really incumbent upon, I think, most importantly, Rob Blake to get his team to get some playoff success. Jim Hiller's signed on, I believe, for 3 years, so he's kind of in solid. But it's going to be another interesting season because this is a solid team. Is it a Stanley Cup contender? When I look at the roster, I can't say that. But should they be 95 to 100 points again? They really should be.
They should be. And I have some concepts as to why they keep pulling this off. And again, part of it's just people being overlooked. Anze Kopitar, Ponce de Leon. Ponce de Leon is the founder. Yeah. He's 37 years old. The kids are going to have to Google Ponce de Leon. Quentin Byfield is starting to live up. The 2022 second overall pick. is coming into his own. And you know what? That 6 point, whatever it is, 6.2, that might end up
Hmm.
like a
It
bargain,
should be. Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Here in the next
Yes.
couple of years. For whoever, for whatever reason, they set plug in it in net just seems to work out. Now it's Darcy
Hmm.
Kemper. And then probably because Kempe and Fiala are two of the more underrated players in the National Hockey League. And again, that comes down to where they play.
Yeah, and going back to the structure again, this team with Drew Doughty, who still is great, but is not at the level of, let's say, Quinn Hughes or Kale McCarr or Roman Yossi. I think they were second overall or third overall goals against, and second penalty kill. When you
Right.
have that type of structure and that kind of defensive performance, you're going to make the playoffs. They were an average offensive team, and that's what really hurt them. Well, what hurt them in the postseason, Rob, is that they had a really effective penalty kill against 31 of 32 teams. Unfortunately, the 32nd team is the one they've played in the playoffs the last 3 seasons, and they couldn't figure out a way. So yeah, Darcy Kemper for Cam Talbot. Look, Cam's numbers were really good. He bounced back because he was healthy. Non-15. The thing with Darcy though, if you look at goals above expected, if you go to Money Puck and you look at Darcy Kemper's year last season,
Yeah.
he was 75th out of I think 99 goalies.
Yeah.
And so that wasn't good with respect to expected goals. And he only played 33 games. Now, if he's going to be the starter over David Rittich, he's going to have to probably play, almost what, maybe 50, 60% more games,
Yeah.
maybe in the 50s.
Yeah.
And that might be a challenge for him. Now, he's still the same guy who won a couple of years ago in Colorado. The team in front of him in Washington wasn't great. He didn't have great numbers, but Charlie Lincoln did. So the question is, can they get about the same performance they got from Cam that they'll get from Darcy? The one thing about this team now, even though, look, here's the thing. I get it. They traded Dubois, right? When you're in the game 5 of an elimination game and a guy's making $8.5 million and he's playing the fourth line center,
Yeah.
like there's a problem. And they eradicated the problem. They got back Camper. They got out from under the contract. And Rob, the one thing you can't tell me in this league is that no contract's untradeable. Because if I told you this time last year the Kings would trade Dubois, not retain any money, and goaltender back, you would tell me I was day drinking before I came on your show. And that's not the case. So any contract's tradable, Rob. But here's the thing. Now it winds up that your trade was, Velarde, Iafallo, Kupari, and a second round pick for Darcy Kemper. You would
Yeah.
never make that trade. Right.
Right.
So at the end of it, yeah, sure, he got from under. There's now cap space. Quentin Byfield's going to go to center, so they have coverage there. But it was not a great trade. And with respect to Kemper, can he bounce back? And maybe not be the guy he was in Colorado because they had a great team around him, but give them 910 to 915 save percentage, bounce back and be a better goaltender. They can, again, they should be in that 95 to 100 point range.
Byfield, just touch on him a little
Yeah.
bit here in terms of what you've seen in terms of that emergence that we're referring to.
Yeah, he had to see. Look, he hasn't had a 100 point season like Tim Stützle did in Ottawa, but Tim took a step backwards as well. So that comparison at first wasn't fair because Stützle was over the top with respect to his scoring, but now it's kind of equalized. And for bigger guys like Byfield, sometimes Rob, it takes time to develop. Got Slavkovsky in Montreal, same thing. People thought he was a bust up there. He had a really nice season. Same thing with Q. He had 20 goals, I think 35 assists or 30 assists, 50-point guy. When we asked him last season about his future, he said, look, I'm a center. So even before they traded Dubois, while he was very effective with Kempe and Kopitar last year as the first line, like now he gets the opportunity to drive his line. He probably will start with Fiala and maybe Warren Fogle as his wings, but they expect more than 20 goals. And if you look at his goal production last season, Rob, it really cooled off in the second half in the playoffs. He should have scored more than the 20 that he did. Hopefully now that he's driving a line with Kopitar and Deno giving coverage, at least on the defensive side, when it's 2 minutes to go in a game, he's not necessarily going to have to worry about taking a face-off in the defensive zone. So he'll have to work on his going back to center, and the responsibilities are in the middle. But you have to expect more from this player. The progression's there. He's going to be playing center with a very creative player in Fiala, hopefully, although Fiala gets moved around the lineup. So you have to expect more from it, and they will need more if they are going to stay in the top 8 and have some success in the playoffs.
Check out the whole offering separately on YouTube. Can I link this? Yeah, I will find a way to link it. So when you see this on Twitter, Facebook, somewhere else, I will also put the entire thing there so you can hear all about remember Kyle Burrows, Vancouver folks? He's from the area, Lower Mainland, and played for the Canucks, of course. He might be the 6th defenseman for the Kings. Not their strongest position in terms of depth, We'll also talk about goaltending. So there's some good stuff in there. If you want to learn about a team that's just continuously a threat to make the postseason, and probably will be again this year. Yeah. Okay, again, Vancouver Canucks are playing Wednesday night in Abbotsford, the home of their American Hockey League franchise, against the Flames. And we'll talk about that game on Thursday. We will also talk about another very interesting topic in the Western Conference, the Utah Hockey Club. Nameless, and will I didn't realize this, probably nameless for this entire coming season. And then they'll have a big shebang and come up with a name next year. Anyway, I'm going to talk to Matt McConnell. He's been a broadcaster, play-by-play guy for decades in this league. And he was the TV voice for the Arizona Coyotes for the last 13 years. And now he's the TV voice for Utah Hockey Club. Maddie will tell you who are these guys now? What's happening? They're not in Arizona. They're in Salt Lake City. What does it all mean? Are they a threat? They're actually about 4 years into a rebuild. Their pipe dream, I don't want to say pipe dream, but their dream obviously would be to make a bubble playoff, make a wild card spot. Not likely, but you never know because they're playing in a vibrant new community that just the excitement factor alone playing in front of crowds could be enough motivation. So we'll see. That's going to be tomorrow. Matty McConnell, longtime play-by-play man on television in the National Hockey, will tell you everything you need to know about Utah Hockey Club. And we'll also talk about the Vancouver Canucks and the Calgary Flames. Again, Friday night, Vancouver against Seattle in Seattle. By the way, thanks to Everett. You heard him mention 9:50 if you're in the Washington market and you want to hear the next three games. They're on 9:50 a.m. Then they're back to the flagship for the final preseason game and beyond, 93.3 KJR. Vancouver Canucks, of course, you can always listen to 6:50 a.m. That's their flagship station. And I think Brendan Batcher's been doing all the games. It will be or is doing all the games through the preseason and the regular season, obviously. And that I don't think that station ever changes. You can always find them there at 6:50. That's it. And Matty McConnell, well, if you want to watch a Utah game on television, you can do so. Get the package and all that good stuff. That's it. Krakin Canuckleheads for Wednesday, September 25th. See you tomorrow.